Running up the score.
You're listening to the Running Up the Score podcast. Now here's your hosts, Jerry Napoleonello and Kevin Donlin.
Talk about Tampa Bay here. Tampa Bay, another team that dealing with a lot of injuries. Their defense is not as good as it was. So they're another interesting team to see, going up against New Orleans this past week. Even Jameis Winston going out earlier in that game and still getting the loss, and seeing how Tom Brady played in that game. But just overall, their defense. This team, obviously, they're in a different boat than Kansas City because Tampa Bay, they can right the ship because they will be getting reinforcements off of the injured list. So you're going to see some of the guys from that secondary that are injured come back into play. This team, you want to see Gronk back. I mean, he came back earlier in this past week, but ended up leaving early in the game because of back spasms. He was in the first 3 or 4 games, whatever it was, he was Tom Brady's, number one guy. He had, I think, 5 touchdowns in the first 2 or 3 games. So losing him was a big loss. But they're another team that, I don't think they're as good as they were last year. And they have it harder than Kansas City because of how good the NFC is. Because it's not just one other good team. It's not just 2 other good teams. It's not just 3 other good teams. There's a bunch of teams in the NFC that are fighting for that number 1 spot. Not like Kansas City or anybody in the AFC. So Tampa Bay has it a little bit harder than Kansas City. But do you feel as though this team can make it back to the Super Bowl, even dealing with the injuries that they're dealing with?
I think they can still make it to the Super Bowl, but I do think that they are about 1 or 2 injuries away from in dire need of help, especially on the defensive side. Their secondary has been completely depleted. I've never seen anything like it. But they still got that, front 7, and, they've been unbelievable against every running back that's come into town. They really are stopping running backs dead in their tracks, regardless of their game prior. Obviously Kamara was the next one up, but, with Tampa Bay, the offense hasn't skipped a beat. I know they said they had lost Gronk, they lost Antonio Brown. Other guys have stepped up, and they've been able to move the ball. I mean, last week was just one of those games. I mean, they had every opportunity to win that game. That's Tom Brady throwing an interception late. I mean, he doesn't usually do things like that, and that's why they win football games. So, I don't blame Tom Brady, obviously, for a loss. But at the same time, they found a way to lose that football game, and they'll continue to find ways to lose football games if, you're throwing late picks late in the game. I mean, that game was set up beautifully for Tampa Bay to win. So
yeah, they gave him plenty of time, and that was that's the narrative whenever you're going up against Tom Brady. Don't give him that time.
Yeah, they
gave him like a minute and a half.
That secondary was just getting more depleted than I think they were even expecting.
Yeah.
They lost their quarterback obviously, and Trevor Siemian came in and didn't even skip a beat. They were still able to move the ball, spread the the defense, and they were able to obviously find ways to get key first downs, and they were obviously able to score, and they left a lot of time, but they were probably just grateful to get a touchdown at that point. I mean, if you're a team, you want to have the clock management up to perfect. You don't want Tom Brady to have any time left, but you also want to make sure you get into the end zone to begin with.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it was a 2-point game. Obviously Tampa Bay thought they had every reason to be able to go down the field and get 3 points, but obviously a quick pick right off the bat made it a 9-point game, and the game was over just like that. So I'm not really worried about Tampa Bay. I think it's just one of those games where they were set up to try to win that game, despite the fact of everything that had gone on. But I think the Buccaneers are in zero trouble right now. I know even the secondary being weak, but if your front seven can get pressure, anyone can play in the secondary at that point. Definitely. So I'm not really one of those that think that the secondary, I mean, granted, of course, you want great players there, guys that, are just all over the football, able to, find a way to get an interception, a pass deflection, anything else like that. But, Tampa Bay's front seven continuing to be the way they are. It's between that and having that offense, it's going to be just such a tough beat to knock off the Buccaneers.
Yeah, so
For more Running Up the Score, go follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at RUTS Sports.